Hi, Chris. There you are.
Yes, good morning.
How's it, guys? Hi,
Hi,
good morning.
Carl. Hi,
Welcome.
Jonas. Thank you.
Hi, Chris. It's good to see you still around.
I'm in KZN by the beach.
It doesn't look like it if I look at your background.
It doesn't look, yeah, sorry. That's a Joburg background.
Which area, which beach?
I'm in Ramsgate. I have a little place here right on the beach. There's no road between me and the sea.
Yeah, that's the best place to be.
Yeah.
I'm just still admitting some of the guys. Chris, I'm very excited about our, if I should call it chat today, because I believe
Yes.
you're not doing a presentation. There's been so much fuss in the media and so much, yeah, I would almost like to say, I don't want to say wrong information, but everybody wants to put their own little spin on where the country's going and how the registration should be handled.
Yeah.
So this is going to be interesting. Thank you very much for making some time available.
It's a pleasure.
While you are here, you've always got interesting webinars that you are hosting, and you've got interesting speakers joining your webinars. When is your next exciting webinar, and what are you discussing?
Yeah, so the next webinar is on Tuesday next week. That is Tuesday, the 9th of September at 10 o'clock in the morning. And the subject of the webinar is preparing for the forthcoming South African wholesale electricity market. You may be aware that work on the market code, as well as the setting up of the market, the electricity market in South Africa, has been in progress for some years. And with the promulgation of the new draft, well, the new Electricity Regulation Act, the amendment to the Electricity Regulation Act has been amended in order to facilitate, amongst others, the development of the electricity market. So the legal framework is in place, and work has been done on this for some time. And people who are planning to participate in this market, which involves Eskom generation and the Eskom generators, as well as private, IPPs, independent power producers, as well as traders, as well as large off-takers. That means mines, industry, and business. They need to prepare for the introduction of the wholesale electricity market. And that's what this is all about. So we've got 4 top speakers, plus a person from Eskom and a consultant to Eskom who is leading the process. So that's all happening on Tuesday.
Wow, that sounds exciting. It's a massive new market and lots of exciting things happening in the energy sector. I'm quite excited to see where it's going with AI getting hold of the market, and more AI apps and applications being introduced into electrical and power management methodologies and architecture. So it's an interesting landscape.
Yeah, just to also say that it's going to be our biggest webinar ever as it stands at the moment. Currently, as of today, and there's still, several days to go, we have 2,200 people registered to attend the webinar. So there's been a huge amount of interest from the industry, from business, from generators of electricity, from the renewable energy sector. So it promises to be a big one, an excellent one, I hope, and look forward to seeing as many people there as possible.
Oh, that is excellent. Chris, thank you very much. Listen, I'm going to have to start the meeting formally. which we haven't done. I thought I would just create an idle topic while we are waiting for some of the guys to sign in. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name is Karel Ballack. I'm president for the Association for Renewable Energy Practitioners. We've got an interesting lineup today. We've got Chris Yellen joining us, and then I'm going to say one or two things on service level agreements. We've got a maintenance contract that we've developed for industry. It's a document that industry members started years and years ago, and I expected the guys from industry to kind of work on it and complete it. That has obviously never been done because everybody's running around keeping their business interests at bay. So we have decided to take the template or the rough draft that was created, and we have refined it, we've completed it, and we are going to make it available to industry as a service level agreement or a maintenance document. So you would be able to use this document as a template and then just make some changes to it to get the document to fit into what your organization does. So that's the welcome and the opening. I'm going to hand over to Mariesha quickly. She's going to give us some member statistics. Then Chris is going to talk to us about Eskom and the initiatives for and against what Eskom is trying to do, and then we will take a look at the service level agreement. Mariesha, are you there?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mariesha Wiggett. I work with ARUP. It is my absolute privilege to do that. I wanted to give you a bit of an update on where we stand as an organization. So we have been showing steady growth all year, which we've been very thankful for. We are now well over 5,000 members as an organization. And then we have 142 company members and 22 founding members. Now, those two memberships are where companies have committed to financially support the organization, and then in exchange for that get a whole list of benefits. So you get a lot of marketing benefits, you get, there's a bunch of things attached to that, and you get exposure in association with ARUP. So if you are interested in getting your company to be associated with ARUP on a little bit of a bigger scale, rather than just having your individual free membership, please reach out to Anne. She's going to post her email address in the chat box, and you can talk to her about what are the options available to get your company some exposure in terms of credibility and attachment to the ARUP name. Then, as always, we want to encourage you guys to keep your P4 accreditation updated. If you have your P4 level 1 or level 2 and it has expired in the past few months, please also reach out to Anne. She's the one that's going to help you just get your test accreditation up to date. It's a very easy process. You just do your registration online, and then you do your online test. You get 3 attempts to do the test. It's an open book test. You are able to look at the questions, have a think, log out, go do some research, phone a friend, and then log back in and give your answer. The pass rate for the test is 80%, so it's quite a high pass rate. We really expect guys to have a thorough understanding of the test before we can say you are accredited. And then just quickly, I wanted to show you, let me go to the, there we go. If you are not on one of these channels, these are the easiest ways to get a hold of ARUP. So you can follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can scan that QR code on the screen now to join our WhatsApp group. It is a closed WhatsApp group, so you only administration members can send messages. It's not a group where everyone's chatting or posting memes or GIFs. We only share very sporadically industry information on it, like we would have reminded all of the members on the group that we are meeting today at 11, stuff like that. So it's not a very overly busy group, but it is a very efficient channel when we need to speak to industry. So if you want to join, please go ahead and do that. That is it from my side, Carl.
Mariesha, thank you very much. Chris, that kind of brings us back to you for our quick discussion around Eskom and the Eskom registration requirements. There have been lots of news articles and lots of publications on how guys are going to be punished and what's going to be done to them. Where would you like to start this discussion?
Well, thank you very much for this, Carl. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here to talk to everybody today. And up front, I want to just declare that I am the energy advisor to OUTA, the Organization Undoing Tax Abuse. And in many respects, I'm going to be speaking today, from OUTA's perspective. OUTA is looking at the whole subject of Eskom and municipal compliance rules for low voltage solar PV and battery energy storage systems. So I'd like to speak about the work that OUTA is doing, OUTA's view on the matter, and where we think this is going as we move forward. I'd also like to spend some time talking about part of this compliance rules, which at present, according to Eskom, require the sign-off of a low-voltage solar PV and battery energy storage system connected behind the meter on a customer's premises by an EXA-registered professional, that is a professional engineer or a professional technologist or professional technician that is registered with the Engineering Council of South Africa. So it is Eskom's view, and certainly the view of some municipalities, including the City of Cape Town, that they require the customer at the customer's cost to obtain the sign-off of an installation by an EXA-registered professional as part of their Eskom and municipal compliance rules. And this applies to installations, on the customer's premises behind the meter. And I'd like to talk about the implications of this, the legality of this, and where this is going in future. There are some interesting developments taking place. And then thirdly, I'd like to talk about the Eskom requirement as of the 1st of April this year, that any person with a solar PV or battery energy storage system that is a residential customer is now required to change whatever tariff they were on and whatever meter they were using before to the so-called Eskom HomeFlex time of use tariff, which involves also installing a new meter, a bidirectional import-export metering device with remote communications that measures the electricity for each half hour of the day and can be read remotely, so that you can monitor the energy in the on-peak, off-peak, and standard periods, both in summer and in winter. So this is a requirement from the 1st of April for all residential customers with solar PV and battery energy storage systems. They're going to have to change whatever metering system they've got, or whether it's a prepaid meter, whether it's a smart meter, a unidirectional smart meter, whether it's a Ferraris meter, whether they are on the HomeLight 20 amp, HomeLight 60 amp tariff, which involves a prepaid electricity meter, or whether they're on a credit account, with a 60 amp or 80 amp or 100 amp single phase or three-phase supply, low voltage supply, with a Ferraris meter or with a smart meter. They're going to have to change to a bidirectional smart meter and go on this HomeFlex time of use tariff. So those are the three issues that I'm going to talk about. Okay. And I'm going to be talking about them largely from OUTA's perspective, OUTA's view on this matter, which happens to be my own view because I actually advise OUTA on these matters. So with that, I'll dive into these compliance rules that Eskom have and municipalities have. Okay. And a little bit of background is necessary. You know, just to understand what we're talking about here is on a customer's premises behind the meter. He's not on the Eskom network and is not on the municipal network. So there are a number of laws and standards, some of them compulsory standards. And then there are also what we call specifications, user specifications, Eskom specifications, municipal specifications, that try and lay down these rules. And just to run through this, the main piece of legislation that covers behind the meter electrical installations is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And the regulator for this act is the Department of Employment and Labor. And associated with this act that specifies a number of legal requirements for electrical installations behind the meter, which includes, by the way, solar PV and battery, because that is really, you might call them electrical equipment or electrical machinery connected on the customer's premises behind the meter. So the Occupational Health and Safety Act covers this behind the meter situation, whether it is residential, commercial, buildings, offices, small light industry, etc., where there is a low voltage supply. So the Occupational Health and Safety Act is the overriding piece of legislation. There's another piece of legislation called the Electricity Regulation Act, which is administered by the Department of Energy and Electricity. But the primary one behind the meter is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And associated with this act are two sets of regulations which are promulgated in terms of the act. The one is called the Electrical Installation Regulations, the EIRs, and the other one is called the Electrical Machinery Regulations. And I mention both of these because the electrical installation regulations largely cover the actual installation itself and the wiring, etc., and also the protective equipments, for that system. And electrical machinery regulations cover equipment and plant and machinery, of which renewable energy, solar PV plant, and battery storage system behind the meter can be considered to be electrical machinery of one kind or another. So those are the main regulations associated with the Act. And then those regulations make reference to a number of standards. So the regulation may say something like, your installation shall comply with the requirements of SANS 10142-1, which is the Code of Practice for the Wiring of Premises, and it covers low voltage installations behind the meter. And by doing so, by referring to this SANS document, it makes that SANS document mandatory with the force of law. So you've got now three layers. You've got the Act, you've got the regulations to the Act, and you've got the standards that are referred to in the Act. And within SANS 10142, it may say something like, this piece of equipment must comply with IEC ... or SANS ... And again, by doing that, that standard then becomes a mandatory requirement because it's referred to by SANS 10142, which is mandatory because it is referred to by the electrical installation regulations, etc. And then lastly, you have what we call the NRS specifications. And I want to stress, an NRS specification is not a standard, nor is it mandatory. It is a user specification developed by Eskom and by municipalities together, and it covers their own network. It may refer to equipment behind the meter, but it has no mandatory force or effect. It is a user specification, not a South African national standard, and certainly not a mandatory South African national standard. It is not, the NRS standards are not referred to by the OSH Act, nor are they referred to, in the regulations to the OSH Act. So I just mentioned that these NRS documents are not mandatory. They are recommendations, and even amongst municipalities and Eskom can adopt these specifications for their own use. They can amend them or adapt them as they see fit, and they may use them where they feel it is appropriate. It's not mandatory for them to even use those specifications.
Yeah.
So one should be just aware of the difference between the law, the regulation, the mandatory standards, the voluntary standards, and the user specifications like the NRS. So where does this take when, in terms of the compliance rules for low voltage solar PV and battery energy storage solutions? Now, there has been some confusion in past years, which has now been cleared up by the relevant working group of the SANS 10142-1 standard. In the past, it was considered, pushed by Eskom largely, that SANS 10142-1 did not cover solar PV and battery energy storages on a customer's premises. It is OUTA's view, after a legal review of the matter, that that is a wrong interpretation of SANS 10142-1. And it's OUTA's view, and we've approached and spoken to Eskom about this matter, and I'll tell you a bit more about it. It's OUTA's view that this interpretation that SANS 10142-1 does not cover solar PV and battery energy storage is incorrect, and it actually does cover solar PV and battery energy storage. The confusion came from a particular note within the SANS standard, but it has been ruled by SANS and by the working group that that note has no mandatory force or effect. It is there for informational purposes only, and has no regulatory force or effect. And to be honest, Eskom is conceding this matter, it seems. That they are working now, the working group has actually decided to remove this note because it has been the source of this confusion in the past. Even though it does not have any force or effect, it has created the excuse, I would call it, by Eskom to say that SANS 10142-1 does not cover solar PV and battery energy storage, and in the absence of it covering it, then they start introducing their own requirements as detailed in some of the NRS specification requirements. But the reality is it does, the standard does cover the solar PV and BESS, and the working group has acknowledged this. Eskom sits on the working group, so it's nothing new to Eskom, and they are in the process of removing this ambiguity that has caused a lot of confusion in the past. And so what Eskom is saying right now is until such time as this note is removed, you are required to stick to their rules. OUTA's position is no, that's not true. The working group has acknowledged that in fact SANS 10142-1 does cover it, even though the note is there. The note is being removed simply to remove any ambiguity that has been used by Eskom to try and justify its position. So whatever happens right now, as it stands today, it is OUTA's view and the working group's view that SANS 10142 does cover solar PV and battery energy storage, and as such, the regulatory requirements for solar PV and BES are the certificate of compliance issued by an electrical contractor and electrician that is duly registered and qualified with the Department of Labor and Employment. So that a COC, the standard COC that was issued, the regulatory requirement for a COC that exists in a household in any way, does and can cover LV solar PV and BESS systems. And therefore, there is no need, even right now, to have an engineer sign off a solar PV system as Eskom were trying to push for. And I think it has now been acknowledged by Eskom, by the working group, that this is the case as we speak. and that this note is being removed, and I think everybody is on the same page that sign off by a electrician or electrical contractor that is duly accredited and registered with the Department of Labor and Employment is all that one needs, and that you do not need a sign-off. Now, this is going to save customers a lot of money. It's going to remove one of the barriers of low-voltage solar PV and BESS systems in residential applications. And I think it's to be welcomed, and I take my hat off to OUTA for fighting for this and getting this situation changed. So in that sense, I hope I've covered, largely covered, points 1 and point 2 of my presentation, that is the compliance rules. And so the compliance rules are the rules that are specified in the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the regulations thereto, the electrical installation regulations, electrical machinery regulations, and SANS 101 for 2-1, and all the regulatory compliance requirements associated with that legislation and regulations. And those compliance requirements, the enforcement thereof and the certificate of compliance is all in place. This has been like this for years. Yeah. There's nothing new that is required beyond a few tweaks to SANS 101 for 2 to remove any of the ambiguity that has resulted in this confusion that has lasted for many years. So it's a very welcome development in our view. It's not fait accompli right yet. OUTA is going to be holding further meetings with Eskom, but I have it on the highest authority from the convener of the SANS 101 for 2-1 working group that this offending clause that has caused all the confusion is being removed. And it looks like Eskom is supporting that, which is good news. And it's also good news for the Electrical Contractors Association and the various electrical inspection authorities that their role in this process has been kind of confirmed, and the COC will be the guiding document for a residential electrical installation, including the solar PV and BESS system. So I hope that kind of clears up points 1 and point 2, and then I'm going to move on to point 3.
Can I stop you before you move on to point 3, or should I wait? Should I wait?
I think no, please stop me. That's fine.
Okay, cool. So I agree with what you've said as far as the act, the regulations, the SANS, even in the front of SANS 10142 in the introductory section, it says this part of SANS covers AC up to 1,000 volts and DC up to 1,500 volts. So I completely agree with everything you said. Even on the NRS spec, on the front page of the NRS spec, it clearly indicates that this is not a standard. One thing that I've got a question around is when we look at the NRS spec and not looking at it from a standards document, it gives guidelines to municipalities to keep the grid infrastructure safe, and it limits the sizes of systems according to the point of supply or the transformer, depending on whether you're a dedicated connection or a dedicated customer where you've got your own transformer, or whether you are on a shared feeder where you share a transformer with other users, like in a residential sector. Something that happened in Robertson was the Robertson line is at the tail end of the line. So the power quality on the Robertson line is not very good. And even though the NRS specification says that users are allowed to use 75% of the transformer specification, in Robertson, they prevented the guys from going up to 75% because it created network instabilities. Now, if we allow electricians just to sign off without so without the registration process, Eskom doesn't have the ability to monitor the amount of embedded generation on the line. So they kind of lose track of what's happening on the electrical infrastructure, not from a safety point of view, but from a design point of view. So I think that municipalities in their bylaws make provision for the registration specifically from an engineering point of view and not necessarily the safety from the COC point of view. Does this affect your decision, or how does this affect the reasoning?
Yeah, no, that doesn't affect our reasoning, and I'll try and explain why. You know, there is another document that is an important document which does have some legal effect, and that is known as the Grid Code of South Africa.
Yes.
Now, what the Grid Code specifies, and this is what NRS doesn't specify. So NRS is just an indicator. It is a recommended specification. It has no force or effect in terms of law. But the Grid Code of South Africa does have force and effect. And what the Grid Code looks after is the Eskom network and the municipal network, not behind the meter. It looks at the Eskom network up to what is called the point of common coupling between the customer's installation that is behind the meter and the municipal network, which is in front of the meter. So at the point of common coupling, that point is, you know, at the connection point between the customer and the utility. And there are some rules specified in the Grid Code as to limits of acceptability at the point of common coupling. So this specifies things like voltage dips and sags and over voltages and spikes, and also specifies things like limits to harmonics and various quality of supply issues. So obviously, a customer connecting to a network at the point of common coupling may cause certain limits like voltage that you've talked about, voltage regulation, to be outside of the limits specified in the Grid Code. And that will then impact on other customers connected to the Eskom network, and will impact on the Eskom network itself, because the Eskom network is a common point of connection between a number of customers. So the Grid Code is very valid, and there are good reasons why the Grid Code specifies, you know, that if you're going to connect something to the network, at the point of common coupling, certain requirements have to be met, and if they are not met, then you have to do something about it. So the point is that it makes no sense. You know, the point is, if the voltage regulation is not necessarily caused by one customer, it can be caused because there are a whole lot of customers all connected, you know, in close proximity at that point of common coupling. So it's not a point of registering one individual client that sorts out the problem. And just because you've registered your client doesn't mean that it's sorted out the problem. No, if the problem exists, Eskom will know about it because the voltage will be out of range, and they will go and sort the matter out. They might need to put in a bigger transformer. They may need to change the tap changer on a, you know, on a transformer. They may need to put in an automatic tap changing device, you know, to regulate the voltage back into the required levels. They may have to strengthen the line or the cable so that the voltage drop is not as high. The point is, it's not just a question of one customer, you know, installing a meter, installing a system. It's a system thing, and there is a need for it. And if, for example, a particular, and by the way, it applies not just to solar PV and battery storage, it applies to anyone. If you put in equipment that causes radio frequency interference, like a soft starter, or a variable speed drive that causes harmonics. It's not a BESS system. It's not a solar PV system. You don't have to register those devices. So why should one pick on solar PV and BESS and say those devices must be registered? The problem is that that various types of equipment, even a motor, if you start a big motor on a weak system, it causes a volt dip, and it causes problems with your neighbors. But that doesn't mean to say, you have to register every motor that you install on a low voltage system. So what I'm trying to say is that you've got to understand what is this trying to achieve? Why are we doing it? You don't have to register motors. You don't have to register variable speed drives. So why should you have to a solar PV and BESS system? It's not rational.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Your closing statement, I think the last couple of sentences, when you started talking about not having to register other devices that cause fluctuations and interference with power quality on electrical networks, I hear what you're saying, and that's actually a valid argument. You look at places that have a lot of welding machines and a lot of welding processes. You look at places with a lot of VSDs where they don't have the correct filters on the various speed drives, on the variable speed drives, and those examples of those types of establishments create havoc as far as harmonics and power quality on the electrical network is concerned, and yet they are not limited in how they operate or what they connect to the network. So that's a valid point. Chris, what I would very much like to do is I want to actually, I don't think that's been done. Are you assigned as a co-host or anything like that?
I am trying to see. I think you have to assign me as a co-host if you want me to be a co-host.
I've just sent you the notice.
Okay, let me just see. Where do I see? Where do I look at this now? You'll have to guide me what I must do to be a co-host if you want me to be.
Yeah, no, it's just so you can, it's just so that you can see the messages, you have a bit more access. I think you want to have one or two extra.
I can see the chat program. Yeah, I can see the chat. I can see the questions on the chat. I can see, I think I can see who's put up their hands, because I can see that Lester Burrow has put up his hand. I don't know if you want to take a question, from Lester Burrow.
Do you want to, so Chris, we have about 20 minutes left. Do you want to cover your third point first? Let's run through the points. Lester, we'll take your question. We've got a host of questions, a whole string of questions in the chat box. We're not going to get to all of them. Lester, keep your hand up, keep your question hot. We'll give you access to it after Chris has done his next point.
And I'll try and keep it short because obviously time is limited. So I wanted to talk about this requirement that Eskom has, that all people who are going to have a solar PV and BESS system, including people that have already installed solar PV and BESS systems, have to change to the home flex tariff. How they're going to enforce that, I'm not quite sure, but that is what they say they have to do. And I want to just cover this. So, there's various people who've got prepaid meters, STS compliant prepaid meters, who've got solar PV and BESS. They are typically middle-class people who've got prepaid meters, but they could be low-income houses, could be medium-income houses, could even be high-income houses on a prepaid meter. And now a rule comes out that says they've got to change that meter and put in and go onto the home flex tariff, which will require a bi-directional meter that can meter import and export based on time of use and with remote meter reading capability. That is an expensive meter. And and to change this meter, you know, many prepaid meters are inside the dwelling of the house, in the kitchen or wherever. And if you're going to put in this meter for Eskom that they require, they want to have access to this meter at your gate, you know, outside your gate. They need access. So you might have to install a meter box and put in the new meter inside the meter box. And all of this starts adding up in terms of the cost. And then, as I say, there's this whole sign-off business, which hopefully is going to be resolved. And for a middle class or a poorer customer, a lower income customer, this is a heavy burden and presents a major, you know, a major barrier to solar PV and BESS in residential installation. And by the way, the same thing applies if you're on the home power tariff. Home power is 60 amp or 80 amp or 100 amp, single phase or three phase. Very often these are with old Ferraris meters, or they might be a smart meter, but they are generally unidirectional. They don't measure import export. They're generally not time of use meters. So if you have, you know, a home power, which is generally, you know, your average middle income user or even upper income user, that's what you might be on. And you would also have to change to a more complex tariff. Now, I can understand if you are intending to export power into the grid and get compensated for that power that you export into the grid, then there is every reason why you need a bidirectional meter, because you need to meter the electricity imported separately from exported, and a time of use does make sense if you want to be on a time of use tariff, although it should be a tariff option. It shouldn't be mandatory to go onto a time of use tariff, but it should be an option to go on it. And to be honest, it is an option. Any customer resident can go onto the home flex tariff, whether you're a prepaid meter. And if you want to go onto a time of use tariff, you go onto the home flex tariff. It is a tariff option for everybody. All Eskom low voltage, you know, residential customers have the option to go onto a time of use home flex tariff. But for people with a solar PV and BESS system, you have to go onto this tariff. You have no choice. It's mandatory. And we feel that that's unnecessary. It's discriminatory. It adds additional cost that is completely unnecessary, and therefore it's irrational for this requirement. We do accept at OUTA that if you want to export power and be paid for that export power, then you do need to go onto this home flex tariff. But if you want to only import power, or even if you export power for some hours of the day, but you're not looking to be compensated for this, then there is no need to put in a bidirectional meter, as long as your meter doesn't run backwards. Now, I can tell you that all prepaid meters, they are unidirectional, they cannot run backwards. So it only measures imported energy. It doesn't, if you can export energy, but it doesn't meter it. So, and it doesn't count backwards. Obviously, Eskom or municipalities have a problem with it going backwards, because the price for imported energy is different from the price of exported energy. Okay. So you do need to measure that difference. But if you're exporting energy and you don't want to be compensated for it, there's no problem. It's not a technical problem. There's no problem at all, and it should be allowed. And a prepaid meter can only run forward, in other words, so there's no technical reason why you should have to be forced onto another tariff. The same thing applies to credit meters, Ferraris meters that have a so-called backstop. This is like a ratchet device. So when the discs, you can rotate the disc, it can go forward, but when it tries to rotate backwards, a ratchet mechanism stops the disc from going backwards. That is called a Ferraris meter with a backstop. If you've got a Ferraris meter with a backstop, you will not be running backwards, and you don't want to be compensated. So even if you export in power, you're not being compensated for it. It's not benefiting you. That's fine. You should be able to stay on your tariff. If, on the other hand, you do want to be compensated, then we understand fully that you need to go onto a time of use tariff that can handle import and export. And so we are arguing with Eskom at the moment about this matter, that this requirement of theirs is discriminatory, it's unfair, it's anti-poor because it penalizes poor customers the most, in the sense that poor customers find it difficult to afford a new meter, plus a meter box, plus a connection fee by Eskom. And Eskom will even charge you a quotation fee. It's actually absurd. They don't even, just to get a quote from them. I mean, how many of you guys charge your customers for a quote? Well, I've never been able to do that in my life, in my working career. If I want to quote, it's my business. I quote at my cost. But Eskom, if you want them to give you a quote, you have to pay them to go quote, even before you know what they're quoting. You have to pay them up front. So there's a number of issues that we think are irrational, unfair, anti-poor, and we're fighting this. And we think, I mean, can I just say, City of Cape Town, you can have a prepaid meter with a solar PV system and BESS, as long as you don't want to be paid for the money, the energy you export. Same thing with a Ferraris meter or a smart unidirectional smart meter. You're allowed to do that, but Cape Town do it properly. If you want to export, you do need to have a bidirectional meter. The meters import export separately. So OUTA's position on this is that this is a matter we need to battle with, and we're fighting it. We don't know the outcome yet. We're meeting with Eskom. We've explained our position. I think they're getting an understanding of what we're getting at, and we're going to make a big deal out of this, because we think that it's not in the interest of the country. It doesn't help when, on the one hand, Eskom to say, please use less electricity, please use less electricity, and then people put in systems to use less electricity, and then they start hitting you, they're making what you're doing illegal. I mean, you can use less electricity. Every reason why you should use less, and that's why we install a gas hot water system or a gas stove, an oven. That's why we install solar geysers on our roof, because we're allowed to reduce our energy consumption. In fact, we're encouraged to use it efficiently.
Yes.
That's what we should be doing. And it seems irrational to pick on one technology, solar PV and battery energy storage, and penalize that technology for doing what Eskom asked us to do, and doing what National Treasury not only asked us to do, but incentivize us to do. They incentivize us to put in these systems, and then Eskom disincentivizes you. It's just not rational.
Chris?
Eskom goes on TV asking you to reduce your consumption, so you put in these systems to help you reduce, and then they say that that's not right. So we're busy fighting that. So that's all I need to say, I hope, about HomeFlex, unless there are questions. Thank you.
There are a couple of questions. Do you think it's reasonable? So wait, two things. One is, at what size do you think it's reasonable to expect an engineer to become involved, or is this something the municipality should drive, or is this something that the electricians should kind of look at a system and go, well, actually, maybe we should get an engineer? Yeah. Is that at which point then, based on your argument, do we decide to pull in an engineer to assist?
Well, whatever we do has got to be in line with the law, and it's got to be consistent. You cannot just have arbitrary thumb-sucking rules being made by this municipality on that place when there is no basis. Let me tell you what the law requires. The law requires any system above 100 kilowatts to be registered with the regulator.
Yes.
And it gives the regulator the power to specify certain things that need to be registered with the municipality and with Eskom.
Yes.
The reality is that the regulator has never done that. So if you read Section 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act, not Section 2, sorry, they call it Annexure 2, or it's an addendum to the Electricity Regulation Act. It specifies those systems that are exempt from licensing and regulation.
Correct.
It's called Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act.
That's right.
It specifies that any installation less than 100 kilowatts does not have to be registered with the regulator. Nothing says that it needs to be regulated with that it needs to be registered with Eskom or the municipality. There is nothing in the law that says that. There's nothing in the electrical installation regulations that says that. If you want that, and if Eskom, they must change the law, or they must go to the regulator and change the regulations. They can't just suck their thumb and put out their own regulations that are arbitrary, not behind the meter. They can do it on their own network, but they can't do it behind the meter. The meter, that is not their network, and there's a set of rules and laws that cover that part of the network, and they don't have jurisdiction. So we believe they are acting beyond their jurisdiction, beyond their mandate and authority, by interfering with other regulatory processes that exist. So it seems to me that 100 kilowatts is the kind of limit, and it applies to low voltage installations. And that doesn't mean to say a customer can't, or an electrician can't pull in an engineer when he thinks is necessary. But from a legal responsibility and liability point of view, a COC imposes a stringent legal liability on the installation contractor and the installation electrician. That is why they have to be registered. They have to be accredited. They have to be qualified. If you're not happy with the qualifications, change the qualifications, change the training, put in training requirements. But you don't try and bend the rules to suit the utility. You sort out what is really the problem. If you think that electricians are not adequately trained, or that the registration process and accreditation process is not adequate, then that's where you change the rules. You change the rules at the point where the rules apply. You don't start adding arbitrary additional rules by Eskom, who are acting beyond their mandate.
That's valid. Thank you very much. Last question from my side, and then I'm going to jump to Lester Barrows. Just a quick response to this one. We've only got like 9 minutes left. You mentioned something in the city of Cape Town, where you said that the city of Cape Town will allow residential installations not to register.
No, I didn't say that. They do have to register. And there's no legal basis for that, but they do have to. What I'm saying, that in the city of Cape Town, you may stay on your prepaid meter, which does not run backwards. You may install a solar PV system and battery system. It's not against their rules. In fact, they actually encourage everybody to go on prepaid meters. But in the city of Cape, if you want to be compensated for energy back into the network, then you must put in a bidirectional meter, and they give you a price for that, etc. And I understand that's the way it should be. They're not trying to tell everybody who's on a prepaid meter, oh, you guys, you poor guys, you middle class guys, you low income people, you're not allowed to have a solar PV system. You have to pay a lot of money to that. To us is unfair. It's unreasonable. It's unnecessary. And it's not required in the city of Cape Town, but it is required at Eskom. And that's why we're fighting it at Eskom.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. Lester, it doesn't look like you've got a microphone that you can switch on. Oh, there you are. Lester?
Okay. Yes. Hi, Carl. Chris, thank you very much for receiving this question of mine. Chris, this understanding you guys have got with Eskom, does this apply to the municipalities as well? That's my first question. I know because in the Cape Town municipality, we do require the engineer to be a proxy for sign-off. And then secondly, which is bizarre to me, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but the city of Cape Town require a simple inverter battery system that is wired as a UPS to be signed off by a professional engineer. I find this bizarre. First of all, that's the first two questions I've got. The second question I've got is I'm busy out in Amanus with a housing complex, trying to assist the people with the housing complex, those that have installed solar and install it correctly. Obviously, I've got to do a couple of changes to their systems to make it comply, but to get Eskom to respond to anything is absolutely impossible. And I've sent I'm not lying, hundreds of emails to various people at Eskom with no response. How do we register? These are people that want to do things correctly. These are people that are prepared to put in the Eskom meter, but they want to do what they feel is right. You got any response on that?
Sure. Okay, let's first of all deal with City of Cape Town. The City of Cape Town do certain things that I think are spot on and are correct. They do certain things that I think are not correct, and you've highlighted some of them. In the case of the sign-off requirements by an engineer, it is unnecessary. It is overstepping their lawful mandate. It is interfering behind the meter. They have no right to do this, and they are doing it because of this confusion in the same way. They used that, the confusion in the SANS 104 document as the way, to justify this. Once this confusion is removed, it will remove this need, whether it's on the Eskom network or on the City of Cape Town network. In the case of municipalities, you have a very wide basket of different cases. Some municipalities are so bloody useless. They don't even know what is going on, and they don't even care, and they don't monitor it. It's a free for all. You do your thing. You don't have to register. You just do it. Other municipalities like City of Cape Town are much more rigorous. They have rules which they enforce and apply. Some of them, and many of them rightfully, and some of them wrongfully. And the sign-off by a PRN is one of those things. That is wrong. It's unlawful in our view. It is exceeding their mandate, and is treading on the toes of another regulatory authority, which has got authority behind the meter. So whatever we're saying about Eskom applies, to the City of Cape Town, and the requirement for an extra registered engineer is equally unlawful and unnecessary, and in the case of City of Cape Town. And hopefully, once Eskom fall in line, that the other municipalities will start, because many of them take their cue from Eskom. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. Getting to your other issue about the unresponsiveness of Eskom, that's the point. At the end of the day, you know what our advice at OUTA is for the moment: don't even register your system. Don't even bother. They are exceeding their mandate. They're trying to get people to. They have no ability to actually enforce this. And what you've just said, makes the point. They can't even reply to a bloody email, let alone sort out the 50,000 unregistered systems, low voltage systems on the Eskom network. I don't think they will ever be able to sort this out. I think it's a game of bluff. Okay, I should say all of these things off the record, but that's my opinion. It's just my opinion. I'm giving you my opinion. Okay,
Yes.
I might be wrong, and just to cover my ass and say I might be wrong, but my opinion is, and OUTA's view is, for the time being, don't register your system. There's work being done on this, and things are going to change. And the law only requires a system above 100 kilowatt to be registered. And we think that municipalities and Eskom, who are enforcing their own requirements behind the meter, are acting beyond their mandate, and they're acting unlawfully.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Just that one point that I made regarding the UPS configured, or an inverter installation configured as a UPS.
Yeah.
They require PR.
Yeah, carry on.
They require PR, and I've been in consultation with senior officers at the Cape Town municipality regarding the matter, and they say they've adopted NRS 097, which obviously is part of well, they've adopted it. But secondly, if you look at NRS, if you look at the battery energy storage facility, and it states clearly, revision 5.3 in the note under section 1, it states clearly that a UPS is not covered by that particular code.
Yeah, look, the NRS documents have no force or effect behind the meter on a customer's premises. It's as simple as that. They can say anything they like about UPS systems. They don't apply behind the meter.
Yes.
And there are millions of UPS systems, from small 500 VA systems that are plugged into a wall and to operate a single PC, to medium systems, with 1 or 2 or 3 or more computers, to larger systems, to 3-phase systems. These are what we call backup devices.
Yes.
They are not connected to the network under normal operation. They are standby devices. They standby devices. They are covered by SANS 10142-1. That means the municipality, NRS, has nothing to say about backup systems, standby systems behind the meter on a customer's premises.
Chris, how
Yeah.
does
Just
the
Carl, sorry, just brief. I just got one last question, and this is very important as well. I've got one customer who's also in a housing complex, and the complexes have their own systems as well, but they've also registered with the Cape Town municipality, and this was also an inverter installation that I configured with the changeover switch to be a UPS system, and now they are threatening her with a fine of 7,500 rand. What do we do about that? Do I ignore that? Do I contest it?
Yeah, look, if my view is they are acting unlawfully. It is absolutely explicit. If you look at SANS 10142, you can also look at the Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act. You do not have to register a standby system. You do not have to, okay? And SANS 10142 makes it clearly it falls under the ambit of the regulatory requirements of the OSH Act and the electrical installation regulations.
Exactly.
Sign off by an electrician is all that is required. There's no registration requirement. NRS has got nothing to do with you, with that installation. And if they attempt to force a fine on you, you exercise your rights in law. I mean, they can fine you, but you don't have to pay it. They will then have to take you to court. Or if they try and disconnect you, then you go to the court and get an injunction to stop them from disconnecting you because they're acting unlawfully. In other words, you exercise your rights in law. But the ball is in their court. If they want to fine you, they can fine you. If you don't pay, you don't pay. Then they have to take action. What is the action they can take? They can either institute legal action against you for payment of this fine, or else they can try and cut you off, in which case you exercise your rights in law. That's my advice.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lester. Chris, I think in most cases, if you look at the question Lester just asked about the fine, it might actually be cheaper to just have the system registered than to go through the hassle and the cost, the legal cost. So I think
That's up to you. That's up to you.
Lots of different aspects. I've had a few questions in the chat box of guys wanting to know how can they support you guys in this. And I think we have to close the meeting with that note. And then I'll thank you for your time.
Yeah. Look, obviously, OUTA as an organization is a civil society organization. It acts in the public interest. That's its mandate. It looks at wasteful expenditure. It looks at the consumer rights, etc. And it fights battles that it thinks that are worthy and can win. We have to choose our battles carefully. We don't have infinite resources or infinite money. And you have to choose your battles carefully. So we have chosen this battle. We are fighting it. So please support OUTA and make your voice heard. I don't work for OUTA in the sense that I'm not employed by OUTA. I am an advisor to OUTA and I advise them. They don't always take my advice, but I give it to them. That's what I'm paid to do. I regard OUTA highly as an organization. They survive by crowdfunding. You can go onto their website and you can make a donation each month for 10 Rand a month or 100 Rand a month or whatever you think it's worth. In the end, they're fighting on your behalf, on behalf of people like yourselves in the industry. And I think if you see yourself clear to support them, I certainly see myself clear to support them with a donation because I think they do good work. And can I tell you their business case when they started off? It was to do with e-tolls. And in a way, this is similar.
Yes.
You see, if you put in irrational rules and irrational laws, you can fight them by civil disobedience.
Yes.
And what OUTA's business case, they said to people, listen, e-tolls, irrational, unlawful, just ignore it, just don't pay. And when you get a summons from SANRAL, when you get your summons from SANRAL, bring the summons to OUTA and they will fight on your behalf, provided you're one of their donors. If you're a donor to OUTA, they will fight your legal battle for you. Just bring the summons and they will do the rest. And that's how they started as a civil society organization. So they crowdfunded people and they thought, well, this is a good business. You know, it's like a little insurance policy.
Works.
Pay a little donation every month. They don't even tell you how much to donate. You can donate 10 Rand a month. And in return, you get some legal protection and you get somebody who can fight on your behalf. I think it's a good business proposition.
Okay. Chris, thank you very much. We'll support you with your next big webinar that you're going to have. I think Maria Anne circulated the link to your registration for your next event, so you should have quite a few new registrations there. Thank you very much thanks for your support. Thanks for taking the time to present on an Arab meeting, and it's nice to see you again, and it's good to see that you are still actively involved in industry.
Thank you, and keep well. All the best, and to everybody on the line, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris. Thank you.
Guys, unfortunately, we have to end the session. We still have a few questions that are unfortunately going to have to remain unanswered. But I would like to thank you for participating, joining the meeting, and yeah, thanks for joining us again this month. Hopefully we'll have a few exciting and interesting discussions and topics for the next meeting coming up. Thanks, guys. Keep well.
Bye.
Bye.